Hi there, welcome to Tarotland Soap Opera. Today I'm going to do a reading for Pisces energy. And like usual on this channel, we're going to do two rows. The top row I refer to as high vibe Pisces, the bottom row a more worldly, shadowy Pisces energy. We all have our dualistic nature in Pisces, just like all the other zodiac signs. We could harness it in a more high vibe way, a more worldly way, a more shadowy way. It just depends on if we kind of invested in it and thought it was important. And Pisces can have to do with listening to our intuition. Some people still don't listen to their intuition. Pisces can be about having more hope and faith and belief in ourselves and in our dreams. And some people haven't invested in that or quit investing in it a long time ago. And some people do. And just like any of the other zodiac signs, some people are just kind of have learned some lessons that some other people have learned. They might be more immature, more lazy, more prideful, more stubborn, more egotistical, more self-centered, much more materialistic, or just want to go indulge in things to feel better. Other people have maybe been enlightened to the truth to temper their more immature nature, have learned that doesn't move their life forward, see the truth of it, don't want to act in certain ways, behave in certain ways, think certain ways. You know, they choose to kind of invest in viewing life from a more high vibe, more positive perspective, staying more focused on truth and love. And we could all sit and wallow if we wanted to, but it doesn't get us anywhere. Do we grieve it? Should we work through it? Yes, but high vibe people become independent of it. The reason for the bottom row's reading, which we all can represent our shadow nature and ways that we've lived life during different phases of our life. Other people healed in the Four of Swords. They went through those life experiences. They saw the truth of it, lived it. Was it just and fair to maybe live their life at certain stages of life? Yes, we've all been 15, 18, 21, 25. We viewed life the way we viewed it, you know. So to a degree it was just and fair because that's where we were at in life. But some people learned lessons along the way, and they were inspired in the Five of Pentacles to move forward, to see the truth. It's time to move forward in life. I don't want to live like an 18 or a 21-year-old or a 25-year-old all my life. And the reason for the top row's reading is the Knight of Wands, which is kind of looking at life as an adventure. And life is about learning these lessons and being inspired in fire sign energy to want to learn those lessons. I have a dream. Life is about learning lessons. I need to see what are good building blocks to take with me, what aren't good building blocks to take with me, see what are the good building blocks, take those with me, see the truth of what needs to go. Also, maybe learn to get more balance within ourselves. The Four of Swords is Libra energy, represented by the scales of justice. We've all been more tipped out of balance, where we're more caught up in ourselves, the world, our ego, our fear, our self-indulgent nature, our immature nature. You know, some people learn those lessons in life, and they are more balanced within themselves, and they are more just and fair. And there can be other people in the world who try to create the illusion that they've done that also, but they really haven't. It's just that they want to move forward in life differently, like get in a different friendship, a different relationship, a different job, and they know if they kind of keep acting or behaving the way they've been doing things, people probably won't hire them for jobs or keep staying in friendship or relationship. So shadowy energy is more like, I'm going to bury those aspects about me kind of underneath the surface, and shadowy Pisces just kind of create an illusion about the truth of who I am. And shadowy energy is kind of trying to, not wanting to deal with the truth, not wanting to see the truth, maybe be willing to manipulate people to create an illusion. And, you know, as other people have dealt with people like that, hopefully they get more inspired. Instead of living more from their mind than their heart, they get inspired to align with getting more balanced. Yes, from my mind, and the pentacles can mean these things of the world in our worldly nature. Do I want some of these things of the world? that I want to invest in and manifest. Friendship, relationship, jobs, yes. But I have learned that some people aren't who they say they are. Some people have certain traits and characteristics that I know I don't think are just and fair, or I could just view them as more immature or something, or bossy or controlling or whatever. And now I need to maybe be more inspired to listen to my intuition. Also, we as human beings, we have free will, and Libra being an air sign, all of us in our air sign energy could think, we're pretty smart. And even in the face of things that don't seem to be aligned with our truth, or people acting with character and integrity or something, because maybe in our former more Knight of Wands energy, we wanted to go indulge in that anyway. And we went and indulged in it. And it probably didn't work out the way we wanted, because we weren't willing to see the truth or listen to our intuition. And then we could have gotten in some more mismatched friendships or relationships. So let's go look at the bottom row. We have the Four of Cups, the Hangman, the Seven of Swords, and the Six of Wands. We've all went through experiences where we could have wanted to invest in people, wanted other people to invest in us. But in the Hangman, which is Pisces energy, we could have looked at life differently. And in the Seven of Swords, which is Aquarius energy, which also has to do with the dreams that we have for our life, we kind of didn't want to see the truth that, well, they kind of want to live their life like this, but I kind of want to live my life like that. And they seem more like this kind of person, and I'm really kind of more this kind of person. And my idea of the dream life is this. Their idea of the dream life is that. But a critical part of, well, two critical parts of the Seven of Swords is the 5, the 6, and the 7 are Aquarius energy, about how we view life and the dreams that we have for ourselves. And then there's the 2 of Swords, which is, Libra energy, of what we think is just and fair. And so we can move forward in things, and sometimes we end up feeling stuck because the people that we're dealing with harness a more shadowy Aquarius energy, maybe shadowy Taurus, shadowy Libra, shadowy Leo, shadowy Cancer, Pisces. They're maybe not telling the truth, that they're not inspired to move forward in life differently or more motivated and inspired by love. They might like to live more from their mind than their heart. And they want to be in friendship and relationships too. They're just not motivated and inspired to you have to get out of your ego nature, or your self-protective or your defensive nature, or have healed from past pain and heartbreak or something, to move forward in more inspired by love. And love is to be just and fair. And you're supposed to treat other people the way you like to be treated. And if it's a romantic relationship, it should be because of love. And there's some people in the world who are defensive to any of that. I don't really want to be just and fair. I don't really want to do love. I get hurt doing love. I'd have to come out behind my ego. I'd have to be in high vibe Leo. I'd have to be more authentic. I would have had to overcome these issues in my past where I felt unloved and stuck and manipulated. We've all dealt with people in our life who, some of those people weren't very loving. We could have felt like they used their emotions maybe more manipulatively, or didn't really want to even really do love, maybe. Might have been in friendships or relationships or family dynamics with them, but they could have been more caught up in themselves or in the world, and maybe a little more stubborn, a little unwilling to look at things from other people's perspective. And in our more worldly nature, which is what the bottom row can talk about, we all have kind of get caught up in the world. These things that we're trying to manifest, basically, probably stability and security, and look victorious and successful to some degree in our life. And some people, that is and stays their primary focus in their life. And for some people, enough is never enough. Some people have more than plenty. They could have chillaxed and maybe worked together with some people in their life in a little more balanced way. But no, those things are the most important. And some people could have more pressing situations in their life, like more a demanding job, or requires more of them, or more education, or more social activities and things that they have to do as a part of their job. And so other people in their life can kind of feel in the Five of Pentacles a little left out in the cold, and could feel like they didn't really get justice in the situation. And we've all been in relationships, like romantic relationships with people, where we could have liked them, we could have thought, we should move forward. This would be victorious and successful and just and fair. It would make me happy. And the other people are like, I think I want to live my life like this. And we're just kind of not on the same page. And, we can all have gone through times where we kind of feel unloved and we feel stuck and we're kind of up in our head about it. The difference is that high vibe people are, in their Sagittarius energy, inspired to heal. I don't want to keep staying stuck. I don't want to keep feeling sad. I don't want to keep having this mental conflict. I don't want to keep being defensive. And so they do listen to their intuition, and they decide to kind of stand up for themselves and work through some of their inner conflict about moving forward and accepting the truth. Sometimes it's just that a good friend or someone we loved moved away or passed away or something, and then it's hard and we kind of feel left out in the cold and we wish that person still lived there or was in our life, and they're not, and so then we decide to invest some time in healing, because I don't want to stay in more shadowy energy. And sometimes we can be sad, feel stuck, feel mentally conflicted. We can get in friendships and relationships with people that can be kind of something we have in common. We can get in friendships and relationships with people for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes those people don't want us to move forward and heal because they plan to stay in this energy, and then they want us to stay in that energy. And it's like, well, how about we be loving and encouraging to each other to work through feeling stuck, feeling sad, feeling a little left out in the cold, and we be loving and encouraging to each other to try to kind of get back up on our feet. And some people are like, no, I don't want to do that. And again, everybody has the free will to live their life the way they want to live it. And maybe they'll go find someone else who's sad and mentally conflicted and feels stuck, and they'll commiserate together. And they'll keep moving forward, being defensive and feeling left out in the cold, and kind of not really loving and encouraging each other to heal or something, Well, the people who can find other people who want to live their life like that will probably live their life like that. Other people who don't really want to do love, who are more about themselves and the world and have this more worldly view of life in their Libra and Taurus philosophy of life. It's about making your life about these things of the world. It's about having a certain status, maybe your image in the world. And I want those things. Don't you want those things? We should move forward in a relationship because then we'd have those things. But is it love? Or is it, this makes practical, logical sense? This works for me. And some people live their life like that because they don't really want to do love anyway. They could defend their more worldly, egoic, shadowy hangman. It could be about operating from your ego. I'm more about these things in the world. I don't want to do love. That's not my truth. I'm more aligned with, in my Taurus philosophy of life, to be more about the world. I think that's just and fair. My Libra energy, that's my truth. That's how I want to move forward. Well, other people can get in relationship with people like that. In a lot of ways, it can seem, you probably wouldn't stay in the relationship if you didn't get along in some ways and have some things in common and maybe like each other. But then as time goes by, other people could kind of realize that it's never going in high vibe Leo to become a more deep, meaningful relationship. Where it's more balanced. Yes, we want these things of the world, but aren't you equally inspired by love? And the other people are like, nope, that's where I draw the line. not doing that, or not willing to be more just and fair. I could be a little bit more about being about myself. I kind of maybe indulge myself, and I want to be in relationships with other people who indulge me. And it's all these things that we find out about people in their Taurus philosophy of life. Everyone taps into Taurus energy, and they all kind of have a philosophy of life that they think is just and fair, and that's how they want to live their life. And whatever it is, some people never want to step out of their comfort zone. I want to stay here. I want to live life like this. Love gives birth to new things. You know, as we go through life and we kind of learn lessons, we shed an old layer of our more worldly, egoic nature to have hope and faith and belief in ourselves to go to that next stage of life. We quit being more like an 18-year-old to be more like a 21-year-old. We face our fears to go on that adventure, to step outside of our comfort zone. Then we learn lessons at that stage of life, and we shed being more like an 18-year-old to be more like a 21-year-old. Some people are inspired to do that throughout their life. And some people aren't. You know? Some people are very afraid of listening to their intuition, which their intuition was given to them as a gift to help them navigate in this world. But, you know, we've all been drawn and attracted to getting in relationships with different people in our life. And we could have felt like we were listening to our intuition and things didn't work out the way we wanted. I believe the reason we were drawn and attracted to certain people was because we had lessons to learn from those people that we needed to learn. And if we're willing to learn those lessons, then we take that lesson with us. Oh, is that what I wasn't seeing? You know? And sometimes we were the people who, maybe in our Aquarius energy, we lack some hope and faith and belief in ourselves. And in our worldly nature, we can think, no, I don't really have hope and faith and belief in myself to the degree of believing I can manifest my dreams into reality. And in our more worldly nature, we can want to work with people thinking, you know, we more have to work with things of the world. Instead of listening more to our intuition, and learning to listen to our intuition is things we learn over time. How many times, again, did our intuition tell us, you shouldn't do that, you should move away from that, you shouldn't invest in that, you should go home, but we were defensive to listening to our intuition, maybe in the Five of Pentacles, because in our more worldly nature of Five of Pentacles, we want to be in friendship and relationship and have jobs. And, you know, something could have seemed like, no, I am sure, us thinking we know better. Kind of us in our pride and ego, thinking we know better. I'm not going to listen to my intuition. And, you know, yes, could we have been drawn and attracted to people? Yes. There's a reason why. Sometimes if we think through, we might not do it till after the fact. Pisces, represented by the Moon card, can talk about these things kind of buried underneath the surface. Past pain and heartbreak, fear, insecurity, all those things that kind of manipulate us. And our intuition and more high vibrational people in our life could have been trying to tell us, I don't think that's a good idea, you know. I think, you know, you might be doing this for these other reasons. I wish you had more hope and faith and belief in yourself. And we could have had people who are loving and encouraging to us at different times in our life. We could have played that role to other people also in our life. And sometimes that is the pattern, where it's like, oh, look, I'm going to go help these people who are sad or stuck or conflicted and defensive. I'm going to inspire them with truth and love, because you could be a very loving person. And you don't like to see other people not loving themselves, feeling stuck, being manipulated, all up in their head. And you could try to offer them love and encouragement. Well, that's okay. It's just as we have kind of maybe gotten in more involved relationships with some of those people, we could learn over time that it's okay for me to be a just and fair and loving and encouraging person to everyone in the world. But I might want to kind of keep my distance and not get in a more involved relationship if that's not my truth and that's not how I think, feel, the emotions, the thoughts, the defensiveness, the ego up in your head, living more from your mind than your heart, being more defensive or something. Why would I get myself more involved in a relationship with someone like that? And part of it can be because you have that hopeful, believing spirit that everybody's motivated and inspired to heal and deal with the truth and free themselves from things that manipulate them. But there's some people in the world who don't want to. And that can be hard, kind of in your own Sagittarius energy, which is about higher learning and education and philosophy and looking at life as an adventure to be lived and being inspired and high vibe by truth and love. That some people they don't harness their energy that way. They're like, no, I'm good. But hey, you want to come be in a friendship or relationship with me? Okay. They could even be kind of surprised. Like, really? You want to come be in a relationship with me? Well, okay. I'll be in a relationship with you. But shadowy energy can be people, again, that are kind of defensive to seeing the truth, stepping outside their comfort zone, might be more about shadowy Taurus conforming to the world, like to live more from their mind and their heart. And then you can get in a relationship with them and they can be quite defensive to you in your high vibe energy being more independent because they have more things that manipulate them and they don't like you being more independent. And so then over time they can kind of be more controlling or kind of deceptive and manipulative and hurtful and unkind, and it's kind of playing all these mind games to stop you from wanting to move forward in life differently because they don't want to move forward in life differently. And so basically they kind of don't want you to grow to your full potential, because in order for them to go with you, they would have to detach from these more shadowy ways of viewing life. I don't want to do love. I don't want to look at life from any other perspective. I have my perspective, the way I view life or the world, being more about me, more about these things of the world. I view that as victorious and successful. I don't view life like you view life. And eventually also what can happen in those more mismatched relationships, just like you can kind of feel like you would like to not be in it anymore, they eventually can get to where they don't want to be in it anymore. Because, a house divided can't stand. You have different dreams, goals, motivations, ways of viewing life, ways of living life. What motivates and inspires you is different. So everybody could want to leave. It's just that I think sometimes, since the more worldly, shadowy people aren't really more motivated and inspired to be in more loving relationships or deep, meaningful relationships, it is more about them, more about ego, image, things they indulge in, or status or whatever. That's more what they have to offer people. And so their image or their status is very important to them. And so that's where they can be kind of deceptive and manipulative and act in these shadowy ways. And sometimes when we were in those kind of relationships, we didn't understand, why are those people acting that way? And part of the reason they were acting that way is because they wanted you to go. And they wanted you to go so that they could maybe, poor, pitiful me, and I'm so sad, and I don't know why they did that. But they're deceptive and manipulative and don't tell people the truth about all the things that they did to try to get you to leave. They didn't work together with you in a just and fair way. Or maybe they took some immature action in the relationship. You were in a relationship trying to move something forward in more high vibrational energy, and they just kind of wanted to indulge in it, or while they were moving forward in it, for them, up here we have the Magician, which is kind of about trying to manifest something in love and taking that leap of faith. For them in that Ten of Wands can be feeling overwhelmed because it's not really their truth, but they're trying to move forward with people who are kind of more motivated and inspired by love and justice and fairness and loving and believing in themselves and being more independent and freeing themselves from things that manipulate them. And they're kind of like trying to present themselves as being that type of person, but that's not who they are. And it's really overwhelming because it's not their truth. And so then, you know, they could get this idea, how do I stop the people that I'm in a relationship with from continuing to move forward because I'm overwhelmed. This is so not like how I normally maybe live my life, and I maybe am, you know, even trying to work together with people in a more just and fair way when I maybe haven't learned to love myself, and really even maybe don't want to do love, but I'm trying to do it, but they could even know they're being deceptive and manipulative, shadowy Aquarius energy. They know they're more deceptive to love. But they could have been hoping that maybe they'd get over their defensiveness and their fear of being hurt, or hoping if they got in relationships or worked with people who are more stable, grounded, mature, maybe that they'd feel more stable, grounded, and mature and grow up. But they maybe didn't, you know? You have to be willing to look at the things that manipulate you. And some people, you know, aren't realizing that, didn't realize it. Oh, is that what I have to do? Oh, I didn't think I had to do that. I just thought it was that you put in this work and effort to try to present yourself a certain way, act a certain way. Well, if it's not really the truth, yeah, it's going to be overwhelming. Just like being in a job you do not like, but might have a lot of perks and benefits to it that you want to stay in it, but it's not aligned with your truth, you know? And that's when they could decide to do something kind of immature to try to get the people who are moving forward, like, quit moving forward, come back and let's go do this. You know, I am kind of defensive. This is moving forward in a way that's really feeling overwhelming. You know, and to a degree, anybody could kind of feel that way in a relationship, depending on how things are going, where it's like, can we pause for a minute and just kind of regroup? You know, if I feel like things are moving too fast, you know, I could feel like, you know, some people could feel like someone's trying to move me forward in something before I feel ready to move forward in something. So in that case, some people can say, can we slow down and take some time at this phase of life and kind of move forward in this phase of life for a while? You know, say somebody had a job where they always have to pick up and move. You know, sometimes people can be in a relationship with those people and they can kind of pick up and move. But what if they get to a place where it's like, I really like this place and I have made friends and I do really enjoy my job and maybe I have some opportunities that would be good for me and want a little more balance. You know, it's mostly maybe been about moving forward with people who their situation, because Sagittarius, both in the Ten of Wands and the Knight of Wands, could require a lot of movement. Other people could be like, when is enough enough? You know, because someone else could be maybe either their job requires it or because of trying to climb some career ladder, maybe it requires them to always have to move locations, where other people could have a job where they don't have to move locations. They could kind of move and get in different higher levels of position in a metropolitan area, for example, or a smaller community. And sometimes that can be the reason why some relationships don't work out. That, you know, and everybody can have their way of wanting to live life. And maybe more settled down, where other people always kind of go, go, go. And, maybe when people were kind of younger, I was willing to do the go, go, go and was maybe more driven and motivated. But now I could have found like a comfort zone that I really like. And I don't want to keep moving, And, then some people, I guess, have to make that decision if they're able to find something, and if they're both okay being in that state or environment. They could do that for a while, but then other people could be like feeling like other people are happy in a comfort zone that they're not happy in. And that could be when some people could communicate the truth, and everybody can kind of feel a little defensive. Everybody can feel a little left out in the cold. Everybody can feel kind of overwhelmed. But hopefully, if we kind of accept the truth, and kind of, if nobody is kind of being more immature or deceptive or manipulative, people can part on good terms, just like when you could have lived your life a certain way and then you decided to not invest in certain activities or vices to the degree that you did before, because you saw it kind of wasn't moving your life forward, and then you want to move forward differently. Some of those people will still stay in friendship and relationship with you because you might be willing to do it just in moderation. Like, I'm going to go out from 8 to 10 and then I'm going to go home. I might drink this amount if it's drinking, but I'm not going to drink that amount. And when I've kind of drank this amount, then I'm going to go home. And, it can work for a while, but if the other people definitely kind of, it can just become more distant over time. And sometimes, too, some people can get upset, like, who do you think you are? And why aren't you doing this? And do you think you're better than us? And, not everybody thinks that way, but some people could think that way. And then with some people that were a little more shadowy, you could kind of realize that it really wasn't more about being more independent in their life, seeing things that manipulate them, people in their life that manipulate them, past pain and heartbreak that manipulates them. And you could see that some people don't want to deal with any of those things. And you could see how those things kind of manipulate them and affect them. They could be more defensive in a relationship. Again, they could take some immature action in a relationship. And it could kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I am, people say if you're like 35 or 45, like people doing things that are almost more like what people could have done in friendship or relationship when people were like 18, 21, and 25. It's like, I thought we'd all kind of learn those lessons, and I didn't think any of us were going to repeat some of those old ways of acting or behaving. And, that's when you can realize that, someone maybe isn't who you thought they were, and some of those people weren't. Some of those people were creating an illusion, and it was more to maybe just indulge themselves in a relationship for as long as it worked for them, good for their ego or their image, or to be in a relationship for the perks and the benefits, but never plan to quit letting whatever manipulates them or people in their life manipulate them, never going to quit making their life more about themselves or these things of the world or the ego or image or things they indulge in. And, you just see the truth of it. And it's like, even though it's overwhelming, and even though you might go through a period of feeling left out in the cold, you'd rather be away from them and feel kind of overwhelmed and left out in the cold, where you have the opportunity to invest more of your time, energy, and effort into the people in your life who are more just and fair and balanced and act with maybe character and integrity and loving and encouraging, or meet new people, or go on a new adventure to start new with new people, than be in that and feel like people are being unloving and prideful and deceptive or defensive, and you're feeling overwhelmed all the time. It's like, let's go look at this card. I'm getting cards out of the Cost of Becoming deck. And you got force always creates resistance. And again, if you're not kind of in that, have that more hopeful, believing spirit, and shadowy energy can be where people are being kind of bossy, controlling, immature, deceptive, trying to force something because they don't want to change, maybe. The fives talk about change, and they have fear of change, fear of getting out of their defensive nature, not living more from their mind than their heart, becoming independent of other people in their life. And certainly if people were trying to, shadowy energy, kind of represented by the devil at the big picture, is like being oppressive and restricting and confining and imprisoning and abusive and manipulative and deceptive, and high vibe people don't like people trying to manipulate and control them because they're not trying to manipulate and control people. But some of the people who have that kind of view of life and relationships, they could think everybody thinks that way. And everybody is trying to manipulate and control people because they have this completely different philosophy of life, and how they view life and how they view relationships. And again, it's hard for you to wrap your brain around it because you don't completely, you don't think that way. They in turn can have a very hard time understanding how you view life and live life because they totally don't relate to that either. In a world of duality where people have free will choice, there has to be all these different ways of viewing life so people can get in friendship and relationships with all these different people to try to help them get more clear about what their truth is and truth isn't. But we have to be willing to see the truth when we see the truth. Shadowy energy is we keep defending it because we're defensive of becoming independent of it and moving away from it and accepting the truth of it because we want it to work the way we wanted it to work. And that is basically what shadowy people hope for. I hope these people, us in our human being nature, wanting to be in friendships and relationships and have jobs and things like that. Shadowy people hope that because you want those things, you will tip being more motivated and inspired by wanting those things of the world, that even if they do these shadowy or immature or hurtful or unkind things, that you won't love and believe in yourself enough, kind of what the devil hopes to love and believe in yourself to leave. And even after you could leave and distance yourself from some people, some of those people will keep doing, hurtful and unkind things and getting in friendships and relationships with other people, all for a purpose of trying to manipulate you. Like, look, I'm going to go do this and this, but they're watching you. Like, are you coming back? If you're coming back, well, then I'd maybe dump this relationship and I'd get back in a relationship with you. But, you have to give up your dream of how you thought it was going to be, and you have to let me move forward with you in a relationship and still being kind of more immature and my lack mentality and my defensiveness and my pride and my ego and the things I'm codependent on. And let's do it that way. I think that's just and fair. Like, you won't give birth to something new. They want you to come back and do it the way they want. And so as we're moving forward in life, and we've gotten out of some of these friendships and relationships, other people are getting out of those friendships and relationships. And as we're moving forward, there's always going to be some of the people who are the more shadowy person who we meet in the world, who wants us to be the next person to indulge them in their shadowy ways of being. And that's where you take these lessons that you've learned from that life experience with you as you move forward. So as you move forward and you meet some more immature, shadowy people who harness that in a shadowy way, Am I willing to get to know you and work together with you in a just and fair way? Yes. This is my truth. I'm going to maintain balance within myself. I'm not going to indulge like poor behavior in myself or in others. It has to be just and fair. We can get to know each other. And some of those people can move forward with you for a while, but if really that wasn't what their game plan was, eventually it's like, you can go. I'll go find someone else to go do this with. Because I don't really want to do that. But I would put in some work and effort for a while to see if I could get you in it, hoping if I can get you in it, that then we could repeat this old pattern. Because I repeat that old pattern. They're kind of just like some more immature, shadowy people in the world. And then you're also going to meet people who are more just, fair, balanced, have been in similar situations, are motivated and inspired not to repeat patterns like that, glad to have met someone like you, and you get to know those people. And those people also would probably want to get to know you and don't want to rush in a relationship or friendship, just get to know each other and see if people seem to be who they say they are more balanced, are more just and fair. Do they repeat some poor past patterns, like, yep, time to move on, or not? And as people see that you are in high vibe Taurus, you are who you say you are, and you're just, you're fair, you're balanced, you're loving, you're encouraging, but you're not going to indulge poor behavior in yourself or others. There's other people who initially could have been defensive to you just because of people they've also dealt with in their life, even just people in your neighborhood, people you work with, people you might want to be friends with. And eventually some of those people could see, okay, I think this person is who they say they are. I don't think they're like some of the people that I've dealt with in the past, and I am willing to move forward with those people and get along with them better, and work together with them or just get to know them more. And there'll always be other people that you meet that from the get-go you see, where before in your more shadowy people hope loving people will chase after them, which is shadowy Knight of Wands. Well, I'm being just and fair and loving. Why aren't those people working together with me? Oh, let me keep putting more and more work in to try to get them to be more work together with me in a just and fair way. You don't have to do that, and that's what you've learned. High vibe energy, I go out in the world and I treat people the way I like to be treated. And if they show me they're more shadowy, I have learned those kind of lessons from other people in my life. I wish you peace. I'm going to keep moving on. And then some of those people are like, what? Aren't you going to come chase me? What? You're just moving on? And even though a part of us kind of like, would like to keep giving them chance after chance after chance, we've learned that before. No, if people show me they're kind of shadowy, a little deceptive, a little prideful, a little stubborn, a little unjust, a little unfair, whatever, immature, I'm going to keep moving on. And they either need to temper that way of behaving, or I'm not going to really invest much more time, energy, and effort into them unless I have to. I'm going to focus on the people who don't act like that. And that's where people who are shadowy, I think, don't realize how they're shooting themselves in the foot. Some people are shadowy. It is all this mind game, maybe a power and control thing. Like, look how powerful I am, maybe, But it's a false sense of empowerment because they didn't heal and grow and mature themselves. And as they keep getting older, other people keep learning these lessons in life and have less and less patience for people like that. And all this time they were doing that. Oh, how funny, and look how I'm controlling that person, and look how I'm doing this and doing that, and how these certain people will indulge me. It's like, well, that's great if you want to be surrounded by people who, I guess, you're manipulating. Yay. I hope you enjoy the fact that the people you have around you are people who you're deceiving and manipulating. Other people are moving forward with people who inspire them to love and believe in themselves and are just and fair. And then if they would ever think that they would like to be in that kind of relationship, they haven't learned these lessons in life. And, it's just like same way people at a job who like, look all the work I got out of, look how I made all these other people kind of do the work. And, and then they try to move up in the world and they go work somewhere where everybody's much more motivated and inspired, just, fair, balanced. And they're like, oh shit, damn. And they're really kind of not up for it because it's hard to not keep indulging ourselves if we're used to indulging ourselves in some more immature, shadowy, deceptive, that's our way of operating in the world, because that's kind of our truth. The other people aren't going to be putting up with it, and the other people could know it, and they could try to move forward in things, and then they kind of realize that they need to kind of go back, and if they want to do better, they might have to kind of go to an in-between spot in a way, like, if I don't want to go back to living my life like this, or if I want to try to do better, but I'm not where maybe other people in my peer group or whatever it could be, I need to do something in between to kind of learn those lessons. If I have decided, I need to grow up and mature myself, and, but the more stubborn, the more immature, the more defensive, the more full of themselves people, materialistic or self-indulgent, people are, the less likely they are to change, and even if they do try to change, being successful at it. How many things did you want to change in your life at different stages of life? And it could take years and decades to really overcome some of those things. And some people have a lot of things that they didn't learn. Can we be, and we could know people in our life that got a lot of lessons learned. Again, they kind of stay in the friend zone. We can know them, we can see them out, we can visit with them, we can be encouraging and supportive of them, kind of be, not a negative person in their life, so long as they're not being negative. For them to have hope and faith and belief in themselves. But if we see that, like, we're kind of totally at different stages of life, and no, I'm not going to be like a 35-year-old wanting to go out with someone who has an emotional maturity level of like an 18-year-old. I want to be in relationships with other people who have learned those lessons. That is the truth of who they are. And some people have done that. Some people are doing that. And then as we move forward, people can be at these different stages. They're still just trying to learn to love themselves and believe in themselves. Other people have went through that stage. They've kind of closed out that cycle. The 10s can be a completion of a cycle. They're ready to move forward and go on that new adventure. The other people could be anywhere in these different stages of being ready to have a new beginning. And you could be anywhere in this cycle of ready to have a new beginning. Just seeing you need to get out of some things, detach from some things. Other people already did that. Other people are really ready to move forward, maybe going through a period of feeling left out in the cold, and really putting in this work to heal, get more balance within themselves. Again, it's one thing to distance ourselves from habits, vices, people. It's another thing to love ourselves and work through the feeling of being overwhelmed and feeling left out in the cold. And again, we can have people that can be loving and encouraging people in our life, but might not want to get more involved, be ready to get more involved friendships or relationships till other people have seemed to complete a cycle and ready to really move forward in life differently, have healed from that. And again, there's going to be some people in the world, they're never going to see the truth. They're never going to heal. And for some, they are people who could just represent a more worldly view of life. And, who knows, when we came here, in order to have a world of duality, for God to keep things in balance so there's free will choice, maybe some people came down and said, you know what, I'll be one of the people who has more hope and faith and belief and love. I am sure I will not succumb to my own shadow nature and other shadowy people and give up on myself and give up on my dreams. And other people could have said, I will be one of the people who's more about the world or myself. And, in order to give people free will choice. And then other people could be the people who had free will choice more so. For those of you that are more motivated and inspired by love, was it possible for you to kind of drive your life into the ditch at different times in your life and for quite a while? Yeah. But it could be really hard to keep you down because it's just not the truth of who you are. Eventually, anybody in your life who can be loving and encouraging and supportive of you, you will accept that help. Not every time in your life, but sometimes you could have rejected people because you weren't ready for it. But, the people in your life who are loving and encouraging, you're kind of more inspired to overcome. And some people it could be a natural thing kind of in them where this will always be more their truth. So what's coming up for some people who harness some high vibe Pisces energy that they might not see coming? The King of Swords, the King of Cups, the Six of Swords, the Queen of Swords, the Hierophant, and the Three of Cups. And the reason is because of the Three of Pentacles. So this is Capricorn energy, and shadowy Capricorn is represented by the Devil. So you put in work and effort because you wanted to free yourself from your own not feeling loved or feeling rejected or feeling stuck or feeling confused, feeling left out in the cold, feeling overwhelmed. And you kind of looked at things just within you. What are the things just within me that can make me feel that way? I don't want to blame anyone else for my own inner issues, right? And then when I kind of work on things within myself, then I might communicate to people in my life and then, see where they're at. And sometimes we realize it was some of the people in our life that were making us feel that way, but we didn't initially want to blame those people, so we did this work within ourselves. But then when we did that work, and it's like, okay, I've gotten squared with myself, I want this to move forward. That is what I have been wanting. That's what I've been trying to do. And that's when some of the other people were able to see more clearly that they're more defensive to change, more defensive to moving forward differently, and then we're kind of clear about it. So you wanted justice, so you put in work and effort. I view the King of Swords like Libra energy. You wanted to have justice and fairness and balance in your life. Working with your more worldly nature and your loving nature in the King of Cups. I want to be balanced between these things of the world that I want and my more loving, creative, inspired nature. That's my idea of the dream life. That's my truth. That's my philosophy of life. That's kind of the emotional foundation I operate from. And because of that, some people turn their back to you because that's not their truth. They harness those energies in a more shadowy way. I want to wear a false mask. The kings can be how people present themselves in the world, male or female. But it can represent that they're operating more from their ego nature. So whether it's friends, family members, a romantic interest, some people do live more from their worldly egoic nature. And their idea, the dream life, is to be in a relationship. But it could be using their emotions more manipulatively, or think, because you're a loving person, you should be willing to let them manipulate you. Because they could just view loving people are suckers and somebody's going to manipulate them. And they could just view life that way. If I'm more of my ego nature or my worldly nature, or full of myself, I think you should want to be in a relationship with me and you should love me. And it's like, loving people can be very loving, and for a long time, they can sacrifice their truth for these friendships and relationships. But they're hoping over time that the other people will kind of be inspired to want to do love, and eventually they see some of them aren't. And they need to stand up for themselves and their truth and, you know, let some other people move forward the way they want to move forward, and you're going to move forward with the people in your life who you do think are more on that page. And so there was even people in the King and Queen of Swords, some people that you thought, you were counterparts with. There was the opportunity. Any of us have the opportunity at every moment in our relationships to work together with people in a more just and fair and balanced way. And some people, we can be in the relationships for a long time. There's a lot of things to work out in a relationship. But it could get down to if they would have to quit being more immature or more about themselves, or more wanting to be in it for these worldly reasons, and be willing to be more just or fair, or come out from behind their self-protected defensive nature and do love. And some people are like, nope, that's where I draw the line. If you want to do that, you can go. I'm going to go do this. And so, as some people moved away from those people, they have gone through this process of working through the overwhelm and the feeling left out in the cold and the mental confusion, and have gotten clear about the truth that some of the people in their life weren't who they thought they were. And they've learned to love and believe in themselves during this process, even though it was very difficult. And again, communicating just with people in their life who's ready to move forward in this way. Some of the people will come with, some of the people won't. And you keep getting out of your ego about it. I accept that everybody's where they're at. Not everybody, again, it's kind of this mix in the Queen of Swords of our idea of the dream life, and I kind of equate it to a cookie mix of a sprinkle of this, a teaspoon of that, a quarter cup of that, 2 cups of that, 3 cups of that. And other people's can be a completely different mix. And, it's trying to find people who are kind of more on the same page at the same time as we are, that we are kind of more motivated and inspired by those same things. And I think as you keep moving forward, enjoying your life, enjoying the people in your life, but not compromising your truth, you will meet the right people who are more on the same page as you. Now, some other people could have went to go do that, but we can all really want, we're at different stages of life. Some people like, well, I want to get married and have children, and feel like maybe if they don't compromise for a relationship where they could do that they won't have that. Well, there's going to be consequences for those decisions, right? So long as we're willing to take the consequences. If it's not a more just and fair and balanced relationship, eventually probably people are going to have to leave it, Some people could feel stuck in a relationship right now because they didn't keep moving forward. And then what if they meet someone that's like, oh my gosh, that was like the type of person that seems to really be on the same page as me? Well, why did they get in the relationship they got in? Did they have the best of intentions? Did the person they got into it had the best of intentions? Is it more imbalanced, balanced? Some things in the Four of Cups are a missed opportunity, and there could be people that, gee, if I would have always really liked to have had that job, but I have this job, or I really would have liked to have been in a relationship, or I had been in a relationship at one time with that person, but, it didn't work out. Well, some things are missed opportunities, and sometimes people, healed, move forward with other people, and they're putting in their best effort in that relationship, and it's kind of like trusting and believing that if things were more meant to be in alignment with you with some people in your life, but God knows the truth of what really drives and motivates people and what your dreams are, what their dreams are. You don't maybe know those things, but God does, you assume. So it's like to keep moving forward, not giving up on your dreams if you're single. Some of you could have gotten in a relationship, and again, somebody wasn't their truth, or you weren't on the same page, and you keep moving forward. You don't give up on your dreams, and other people do give up on their dreams, and it's just to be in a relationship, indulging someone indulging them, maybe just to be in one, and that's their free will choice to live their life. And some of those people could feel quite overwhelmed and feel left out in the cold, but until they're willing to speak their truth and stand up for themselves, they're going to keep doing that. High vibe people are standing up for their truth, standing up. Probably have loving people in their life who are standing up for them, and people in their life they're standing up for, and they're continuing to move forward, looking at life from the higher perspective so they don't get all caught up in their head, and walk the talk, be inspired by love and intuition to guide them, willing to go on the adventure, not willing to want to repeat an old pattern and create an illusion about how wonderful their life is when it's not, or they compromise their truth. What's coming up for some people who might harness a more worldly, shadowy Pisces energy that they might not see coming? The Nine of Wands and the Page of Cups. Why? Because of the Nine of Pentacles. Well, shadowy and worldly people can always be surprised when other people love and believe in themselves enough to get out of their ego. Quit being more manipulated by their ego, by the world, to go live their authentic truth from love. Page of Cups. Stand up for their more hopeful, believing, loving nature. There can be shadowy people in the world that maybe they have a certain status or image or look a certain way. High vibe people have a certain status, image, and look a certain way. It's just that the high vibe people are more inspired by love, and they think that's the most valuable thing they really have to offer people. Other people, because they maybe don't invest much in their more emotional nature and loving nature, are more about themselves and their ego and their image and what they look like and what they wear, and that's more what they have to offer people. And if they have those things that they could use to manipulate people, sometimes other people who know they would use those things to manipulate people could meet a just and fair and loving person who could have certain traits, qualities, characteristics, status, image, whatever. And they think, oh, those people, it's kind of like they don't love and believe in themselves enough. They have a lack mentality. And they're sure that those people will use those things that they have to manipulate and control people. And eventually, those people would move on from them and go get in a relationship with someone else. Well, that's someone who didn't get to know the loving people in their life well enough to realize it's not more those things that drive and motivate them. And they don't think that's the most important thing about them, and they don't want people to indulge them for those reasons. But they kind of never got out of their own defensiveness and maybe fear of being deceived and manipulated and being in their ego. Like, well, I'm not even going to take the risk. This person really seems to be a just and fair and loving person. I don't feel good enough. I think one day they'll leave me. So instead of even trying to put in work and effort more in the relationship, I'm going to try to get out of it, or get them to leave. And so it's kind of like then projecting their own shadowy traits and characteristics onto some loving people in their life, when the loving people in their life didn't have any interest in moving away from them, were trying to work together with them, but their judgment is so clouded by their own philosophy of life and their own ego nature and their defensive nature, they sabotage relationships in their life. But some other people, again, who could have a certain status or image or look a certain way or whatever, could always be surprised when other people who also have that and could live their life like that don't. And that those people are willing to get out of their more ego nature and defensive to being hurt nature to do love when they could just manipulate people if they wanted to. And they probably kind of can't understand that. Well, that person, male or female, they could manipulate people if they wanted to. They would probably be able to find people to indulge them. High vibe people don't want to be indulged in a relationship. It's like, why are you acting like that? Don't do that. I don't like that. They want to be in relationships with people who actually want to be in a relationship with them because they love them. The other people are like, who cares if they love you? Are they willing to do this and that and put in more of the work and effort and kind of indulge you and you get to be kind of lazy or whatever? I don't see the problem with it. But those can be people who they don't really do love anyway. It is those other things that they value more than love. And they don't understand when other people would maybe get out of even relationships where people are indulging them, or they have a certain status or image, and they're willing to live their more authentic life. And it's because high vibe people, it's like, enough is enough. How much do I need of these things of the world? I could make it more about me. I could go indulge someone. There's, high vibe people also who are attractive or charming and successful and whatever. They could probably social climb and get people who have more status, more image, and go indulge those people, and those people would be in a relationship. But they don't want to be in those kind of relationships. And they could, just shadowy people just can't understand people who are willing, who could have more of these things of the world, status, ego, image, be indulged, that are willing to be more just and fair and act with character and integrity and love in a relationship. It's because the high vibe people aren't so egotistical. And they've also been enlightened to the truth that love is what makes it all worthwhile. If I have all these things of the world, or I have somebody doing all these things and have all these fake friends or whatever, there's a Bible verse that talks about if you have all these things of the world, it's like a resounding gong. If you don't have love, it's hollow, it's superficial. It looks like love, it quacks like love, but it's not love. And everybody feels left out in the cold. Everybody could be overwhelmed about the truth that everybody is just in it more for these, either because they're codependent, so they're having to indulge someone, or for the status, the ego, the image, but not really willing to do love. And I think what the shadowy people don't see coming is the more high vibe people in their life, friends, family, romantic interests, are going to become defensive to them, and they're going to move on. People can stay in denial for quite a long time and indulge people for quite a long time. But as they try to move things forward and the other people keep repeating old patterns, eventually people are like, you're kind of on your own. I'm not going to try to create an illusion about the truth of who you are anymore, because you keep showing me that's not the truth of who you are. So you go do that. And I'm going to go do me and hang out with the people and that I don't feel repeat those certain patterns. And I wish you peace and love, but I'm going to kind of keep my distance from you. And I might speak my truth if anybody asks me about you. I'm not willing to help create an illusion about the type of person that you are when that's not the type of person that you are. But you might try to create the illusion that you're that type of person. And I don't want to be involved in it. Leave me out of it. Because if those people come towards me, I'm probably going to tell them what I think about your being deceptive or stubborn or prideful or immature or whatever, And I think the shadowy people will be more surrounded by people who are more like them, who are also defensive to love, who also are just more emotionally invested in being about themselves, these things they indulge in, or the ego, or the image, or the status. And it's just what other people would view as more emotionally immature people, where it's more superficial and shallow. Or just immature self-indulgence. People who don't grow up and mature themselves. And other people who don't want to hang around people like that aren't going to hang around people like that. And they'll probably be more surrounded by people like themselves. And they might be upset that some of the people in their life, don't seem to want to hang out with them the way they used to. But again, some people could have created an illusion about the truth of who they were. But that wasn't the truth of who they were. Then they started to kind of be and live their life more authentically who they were. And then it is like the other people could feel like deceived and manipulated. Like, I used to view you and and now that, it's like I didn't know you. And no, I don't agree with this. If this is who you'd been all the time, I never would have been more involved in a friendship or relationship with you. And I just assumed you'd kind of learn these lessons like everybody else, but you seem to not have, and that's not my truth. So go hang out with the people who that is their truth. And they could end up getting in relationships, they're kind of aligning with their more shadow nature. Their shadow nature doesn't have their best interest. Other shadowy people in their life don't have their best interest. It's kind of like being aligned with the devil, and the devil lies, and the devil can be oppressive and restrictive and confining and imprisoning. And they might find out that they get in relationships with people who really want to be in the friendship or the relationship with them for their own reasons, which these people could kind of like. Oh, you're willing to stay in it, even if I do this and even if I act that way? You betcha. I want these things. Oh, and by the way, you're not going anywhere. You are not going to be independent of me. You are going to be around me, and you are not going to do independent things because I want these things that you were offering me to be in a relationship with you. And I want those things. So they could, it's kind of like their shadow nature, their ego, their fear, their immaturity, their lust, their greed gets a stranglehold on them. And they kind of can't become independent of it. And then they get other people that get in relationship with them that could be kind of defensive and controlling also, because they do really want those things that those people were offering. So there you go, Pisces. I wish you peace, love, and joy, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.